Hi there. So I had a flat a couple days ago in the truck that God gave me. And that's the truck that I asked God for. And when we had the flat, I was kind of shocked. And because of the timing wasn't the best time and it was late at night. The good thing is I wasn't alone. I was there with my husband. But I started to think about it a couple days later. I got home safely. The flat has been replaced. It was definitely something we weren't expecting in the moment. But I got to thinking about what do you do when what you thought you were going to have happen is not exactly what you receive, or when that thing that you prayed for doesn't function exactly the way that you thought it was going to function. And so, as many of you know, I send out a Tuesday talk every week. And what I decided to do this week was a little bit different. I want to send out the message that you'll receive now because you receive this at the same time, but I also wanted to put some words to it for those who may want to go a little bit deeper into what was on my mind and heart when I prepared the message. And so, what I want to know from you is what would you do to protect and take care of the thing that you asked God for? How long would you wait to receive it? And when you do receive it, what are you going to do when something goes wrong with it? And the biblical reference that I had to come to mind when I thought about this was Rachel and Leah. And so that's in the book of Genesis, chapter 25. I'm going to go there because we got the time. Genesis, actually, Genesis 29. So I'm not going to get into the story of Jacob. Basically, I'll tell you, Jacob was on a journey at this point in time. He went out, he's at a well, he sees Rachel, who he will later asks and wants to be his wife. So he goes in, he submits himself to Laban to work for him for 7 years so that he can retrieve Rachel as his wife. And so I'm going to pick up with reading around, well, first let me just lay the foundation for when he asked for it. Asked for Rachel. So this was the agreement. I'll start at 16. So Genesis 29, verse 16. Now Laban had two daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah had weak eyes, but Rachel had a lovely figure and was beautiful. I'm reading out of the NIV version. Jacob was in love with Rachel and said, I'll work for you for 7 years in return for your younger daughter, Rachel. Laban said, it is better that I give her to you than some other man, so stay here with me. So Jacob served 7 years to get Rachel, but that seemed like only a few days to him because he was in love with her. So his time was up. I'm going to skip down a little bit. And to verse 25, which is where I want to lay a foundation at, and that is, when morning came, there was Leah. So Jacob said to Laban, what is this have you done to me? I served you for Rachel, didn't I? Why have you deceived me? And I started thinking about this. I thought about how sometimes when we're on the path to get what we want, we are sometimes given some other things in the process. And with these things, we have a choice in how we treat them. And we can treat it with respect and love. We can honor it and still, be appreciative of it, or we can dog it out. And I'll use a car, for example. I remember I never really asked for the car type that I drive today. And it's not about the car because that's not what it is. But what was my experience was I was driving a vehicle that had no air conditioner, and I'm living in the heat of Mississippi. So what I used to do at the time was I would take a bandana, I'd tie my hair down so that as I had my windows down, that I wouldn't have my hair all over my head by the time I landed or arrived to my destination. And so I did that for day after day after day. And that time I would be sweaty in the car and all of that. I remember talking to God about just having a vehicle with air conditioning and having a vehicle that I wasn't concerned about breaking down on the road. And through the years, He's given me the vehicle after vehicle. But even as I think about the vehicle that I drive now, there are sometimes that things go wrong with it. And because something goes wrong with it, it doesn't mean that I can get rid of it and I don't receive it still as a blessing. And even when I had that car, when something went wrong with it, I still had to take care of it. So my question to you is when you get something and it's not exactly what you want, what are you doing to make sure that you still take care of it and honor it in the same way? Not long ago, God had me make a list of all the repairs and things that I want done in our house. Small from the big things to the small things. And what it did was just making a list, although it was like little stuff, oh, like paint here, I would like a new this there, I would like to replace this door here. I like to, there's a scratch on the wall in this place. Just small things. I want the carpet clean, little things that I want done around the house. But as I started thinking about that, as I was preparing to write this Tuesday's message, it made me think about the list that He had me write. It made me think about how well am I taking care of the thing that He gave me, regardless of where I am on the phase. Is it the thing I most desire? Is it my Rachel? Is it my Leah? But regardless of what, we're responsible for taking care of them both. And the reason why I know that we're responsible for taking care of them both, if you go on and read down in there, it talks about how he he married Leah, and then and after that, he challenged Laban, saying, "This is not what we agreed to. I served you to marry Rachel." And a lot of times I've heard folks talk about this from the perspective of him being tricked into marrying Leah. But I want to focus on the fact that Leah is still his wife. And he still made covenant with his wife, and he's still responsible for taking care of her. And so, if you read on in scripture, it talks about how Leah begins to bear children, and she's bearing child after child after child, and Rachel isn't able to bear children. And what I thought was so interesting about that is Rachel was the one he wanted, right? That's the his that was the love, the desire that he had was a desire for Rachel, but there was a malfunction there in the fact that she could not produce kids for him. But he still loved her, but she was envious of the fact that her sister had the other kids. None of that's the point. The point is that because God saw how much he loved Leah and how much Rachel wasn't, God opened Leah's womb. That says to me that when you have that house that is not the one that you really dreamed of, but it's the one that you reside in, you still need to take care of it. It said to me when you have the car, that's not the car that you really would love to have, but it's the one that you have today that you still need to take care of it. It says to me if you have that child that does not call, that is not obedient, that is not doing all the things that you want done, but you still ask God for that child, you still are responsible for taking care of that kid or that husband or that wife or whatever the situation may be. What it challenged me to think about is how Leah was treated in the situation. She had nothing to do with the agreement between Laban and Rachel's father. She had none of that. She had nothing to do with that with Jacob, none of it, but she was a victim of her circumstance. And so a lot of things that we receive, sometimes we look at it from a perspective of, oh my gosh, this is not exactly what I want. I'm gonna use my not my job. My job in some regards in the past, but I will say jobs in general. You get on the job that change your wages, that change your hours, that change your expectations, and all these things are different from what you expected when you really initially got on a job. And you're like, wait a minute, this is not what I agreed to. But you are still responsible for showing up. You're still responsible for showing love. You're still responsible for delivering in a way that is pleasing to God. And the reason I know that this is real is because as you get down in the scripture, it talks about Leah conceiving again and again. And then you get into Genesis 30 and 1. I'm going to read it. When Rachel saw that she was not bearing Jacob any children, she became jealous of her sister. So she said to Jacob, give me children or I will die. And Jacob became angry with her and said, am I in place of God? Who has kept you from having children? So then, of course, they tried to fix it their own way. And none of that's the point. And I didn't get online for us to be online for a long time tonight. I got online for a couple of reasons. One reason is to tell you that sometimes sometimes you're gonna get something that you don't think it's necessary that you take care of because it's not exactly what you want. So you may be more tempted to not treat it with the same amount of respect that you may treat something that you like is the thing of your dream. I challenge you to treat it all as a gift from God. I challenge you to think about why it is He gave you that in the first place and what it is that you are to do with it. I find it so strange that after all that time he worked for Rachel, he received Leah, he worked for Rachel for another 7 years after he married her. And then they had children, they had a child, and then Rachel ends up passing when she's delivering Benjamin. That says to me that sometimes when we get what we really want, we may not even have it a long time. So because of the fact you don't know how long you're gonna have it, you don't know how long you're gonna have that great relationship with whoever that may be, or whatever it is that you all have been asking God for. We don't know how long we have. What it tells me is that we have to cherish the moments. We have to cherish what we have even along the way to where we're going. And so I want to just take the moment just to encourage you with that, to encourage you to think about what you have in your house, to encourage you to do what God had me to do. He had me to do it related to my house, but He may ask you to do it for another reason. But instead of focusing on other things, think about what it is He's blessed with you today, blessed you with right now today. Take some time, write a list of some things that you'd like to see done right around or right with the things that you have received today, that you have today, and then decide on how you're going to elevate it and show more respect to it. It may be something, or it may be someone. It may be your spouse that's in your life. It may be a friend that you have that you are glad that they're a part of your life. Because you have that relationship right now, I encourage you not to wait until when, until whatever that appointed time may be, or whatever those circumstances may be, that you receive something else, but you cherish what you have today and see how God will bless you along the way with that. Thank you for listening and have a good night or day.